Chris Paul, boy, does he have an interesting offseason. After being up 2-0 in the NBA Finals and looking like he might get his first ring, the Milwaukee Bucks win 4 in a row, beating them 4-2. Welcome to another Triple Play Fantasy in 15. I'm Eric, a.k.a. The Doc, joined by Eric, Mint Sports. What's going on? Great name, Eric.
Yeah, it's nice to meet like this Eric. A lot of Erics around here. I think Chris Paul has a tough decision to make right now because you hear the Lakers are interested in him, and that's got to be very hard to turn down. But I think ultimately he stays in Phoenix.
All right, well, I guess the only thing we can agree on today is that we both have good names. But I'm going to tell you why Chris Paul should go to the Lakers. So the first elephant in the room is his $44.2 million player option. Now, I know that's very enticing to cash in at, especially at 36 years old. Chris Paul has earned that, even if his performance isn't at that. But he's already made over $300 million in his career, and he makes over $8 million a year from endorsements.
All those State Farm commercials.
All those State Farm commercials keep him busy. So I don't think
the money from Cliff.
And the money from Cliff. Thanks for proving my point.
You're right there.
So I don't think he really needs the money. And as we've seen with Aaron Rodgers in the NFL, obviously in a different sport, money isn't everything to these athletes. So we look at the Lakers salary cap contract situation, and they're going to have a lot tied up with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and there's nothing they can do to move that. But Dennis Schroeder is going to be off the books. He has a $15.5 million contract. NBA Central actually just came out and says Kyle Kuzma is ready to move on. So if they can find someone to take that contract, maybe ship a pick, that's $13 million off the books. Wesley Matthews is up at $3.6 million. So they can get kind of creative with the cap if Chris Paul is willing to take a discount, which at this point I think he is. So let's actually look at how it's going to play out, though, with the team, because Chris Paul, I think, actually fits in better with them at this point. Because
that would be a dream come true for all the Laker fans who wanted the Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant backcourt.
It almost happened in 2011.
It almost happened. It comes full circle, and now it's going to be the Chris Paul, LeBron James backcourt for Los Angeles.
So looking at the actual rosters themselves now, I looked at usage rate from last year. Now, Devin Booker has the highest usage rate in the NBA, 31.9. And basically what that is it's a percentage, an estimate of the team's plays used by a player on the floor. LeBron James was 10th at 31. Anthony Davis was 23rd. DeAndre Ayton was 230. So that lets you know really the offense is primarily going through Booker and that there's going to be a lot of reliance on Chris Paul as opposed to the other two players the Lakers lean on at a much higher rate. I want to go into Chris Paul's age now because he's 36 years old. And the last two seasons, he's played 97% of his games, played 70 of 72 his last year. But we go back to 2018 with Houston. He played 54 out of 82 games, 58 out of 82 with a hamstring strain. Same the year before that in 2017. And in 2016, he's played 74.4% of his games. So he's been pretty healthy the last couple of years, but the hamstring issues, the soft tissue injuries at 36 years old, I don't think he wants to play as frequently, especially if we go to an 82 game regular season. So kind of tying into my third point, we look 72 days was the shortest turnaround time between the 2020 NBA Finals and the start to the 2021 NBA season. And if you look at the average age of the team, the Lakers are actually the oldest team by roster last year at 29.1 years old, and they won the championship. So they played as many games as the Heat, but more than everyone else. They needed some rest. I think with the Suns, they benefited from playing a lot of injured teams. Certainly the Lakers in the first round, the Nuggets without Jamal Murray, the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. I think the Lakers, they were the favorites at the beginning of the season. Hopefully with a healthy offseason, everybody's healthy. You go to the friendship between LeBron and Chris Paul. Come on, let's not ignore that.
The Banana Boat Boys.
The Banana Boat Crew. Carmelo signs the league minimum. Wade comes out of retirement. Chris Bosh is an assistant coach.
Chris Bosh. Yeah, I would love the Banana Boat team to take over the city of Los Angeles.
This is, I think, the final point of Chris Paul and LeBron's career where they can carry a team in this capacity, along with Anthony Davis. I think gives Chris Paul his first shot at winning a ring.
Yeah, I think if that happened, they would be the favorite, like odds-on favorite, at least in the West. Maybe we'll see what happens with the Nets, but yeah, definitely would be interesting. All right, here's why he's going to stay in Phoenix. You're talking about the relationship with LeBron, but don't forget the relationship he has with Monty Williams. It was a huge draw for him to stay in Phoenix, and you know how much it means to him to want to win the championship with Phoenix. Yes, the Lakers have the championship experience, but last year the Suns were the healthier team, which, like, NBA Twitter has its fun with. But part of what we've seen throughout the years is that Phoenix has this incredible like training staff where Steve Nash was healthy with Phoenix. The second he went to the Lakers, couldn't stay healthy. Amari Stoudemire was healthy with Phoenix, goes to the Knicks, can't stay healthy. Grant Hill, Shaq, these guys are able to have longer careers by playing for Phoenix. I know that was a while ago, but Chris Paul looked as healthy as he's ever been. Now, if they wanted to take some of the time, load management pressure off of him, they could bump Ayton up in that usage. Ayton's 22, 23 next season. He could be 210th in usage rate, and that's taking some off Chris Paul's plate. But I think mostly for Chris Paul is if he wants that ring, there's nowhere really. I mean, there's nowhere other than the Lakers that would be at that level of ready to compete, ready to win right now, because they think about it. They were, the Western Conference champions. So that's as close as you get in the West. And he's came this close. He wants to see it through. He wants to be the one who mentored Ayton and Booker into a championship winning team. And like you said, the $40 million is pretty enticing.
The money is hard to turn down. That I can't fault him on. And I certainly understand, because I think after the first two games, we all thought Phoenix was going to win the championship.
Suns in 4.
They looked like the best team because they blew double-digit leads in games 3 and 4. It's not like they were blown out. I think Milwaukee just figured them out. My question to you, Phoenix obviously looked good in the bubble when they were 8-0. But prior to that, this is a team that hadn't made the playoffs since 2010, a poor organization, run by the front office. I know James Jones just won Executive of the Year. Yeah. But I think sometimes, especially in these shortened seasons and with the short turnaround time, we've seen the healthier teams. Are you worried that the Suns were kind of a flash in the pan, that this was, hey, their best year to win, but they might not be able to do this next year?
Well, I think in the bubble they were a flash in the pan because Devin Booker was just on an absolute tear. But I think he's progressing into a player who can be that star. And I think, like you said, James Jones won the Executive of the Year. They built the team in the offseason beyond Chris Paul by getting Jay Crowder. He was a huge contributor for them down the stretch. They had Dario Saric actually played great for them until he got hurt, but he was helping them. Cam Payne, Cam Johnson. These are, they had all of the right pieces where when they made bench rotations and switches and everything happening, there wasn't really a weakness there where every other team had someone where you would say, okay, now Kawhi's hurt, a lot more Luke Kennard. Now that, now even with the Bucks, it was Jeff Teague was on the floor. You could kind of say, we're going to target Jeff Teague. The way the Suns built this roster, there's no one on this team where you really consider them a weak spot. So for Chris Paul to walk away from that, I think he would be stepping a little step backwards away from the finals.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Suns do have more depth. If the Lakers do sign Chris Paul, and if he signs for a considerable amount, let's say $15 million,
well, they're not going to have his minimum would be something high like that, right? For being all-pro and everything.
Yeah, he wouldn't take, I think, anything less than 10. But even 10 with the amount the Lakers have tied up, you're right, it depletes the bench a little bit. You might have to depend on Jared Dudley, the Wesley Matthews to come back on league minimums. I doubt Drummond resigns after his experiment there. Marc Gasol is under contract. Alex Caruso. I think the decision for Chris Paul comes down to, do you want to play with a couple superstars and your banana boat crew to try to win and be on your third team or your fourth team in 4 years? Or do you want to ride it out with a team that was 2 wins away from clinching the NBA championship?
Do you want to finish what you started?
Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Should Chris Paul stay or should he go to the Lakers?